Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Sher. What a week. And it's time to square off. Let's meet this week's panel.
Hi, I'm Mary Cook.
I'm Jovani Patterson.
Hi, I'm Barry Gogel.
I'm Adam Wood, Executive Director of the Maryland GOP.
Adam, welcome to Square Off. We've been here around 42 years. We finally found you. That's great. Explain what you do as the Executive Director of the Republican Party here in Maryland.
So
Briefly.
it's quite a bit. I serve at the pleasure of the chair, Nicole Buse Harris. I basically, in a nutshell, it's my job to get Republicans elected and make Republicans in the state of Maryland more effective.
Excellent. Let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on President Trump signing the Epstein Files Transparency Bill, which, as you know, was passed in the House 427 to 1 and in the Senate by unanimous consent? What are your thoughts on that? Then we'll open it up to the whole floor.
I think it's good. I think, and I can't get in Trump's brain, or I'd make a lot more money. But I do think that probably part of the hesitation is criminal investigations don't include releasing every bit of information the prosecution has. I think this is an issue that really at the core everybody agrees on. They agree that if you did something indecent with a minor, you should be punished with the fullest extent of the law. I would really hate for somebody to get off in a technicality, and I want DOJ to have the strongest possible case against any bad actors involved.
Okay,
I think that said, I think it's a good thing that they eventually just said, okay, fine, let's do it.
good. Welcome to Square Off. Mary, jump in.
So I'm going to say a couple of things. One, Pam Bondi already came out months ago and said there was no criminal activity, there was nothing to investigate. The investigation was closed. She didn't reopen it until Trump said he wanted Democrats investigated. The opening of the files once the Congresswoman from Arizona was sworn in and signed the discharge petition was inevitable. And I think, quite frankly, that all of this by Trump is he knew it was going to get released. He recognized that he was losing in the polls. He signed off on it, knowing that Pam Bondi will have his back and not release anything under the guise of an investigation, which he already said was not fruitful.
All right, Giovanni, what do you think of Mary's answer?
Man, I think Trump is playing chess, not checkers. I do think there's a lot more nuance in it than I think what's out there. But also, I think there's going to be a lot more, Democrats actually implicated by this versus what we're seeing, but versus Trump. I mean, let's be honest. Like, if there was something in in the Epstein files against Trump, it would have been released long time ago. And especially what we're seeing with the representative from I think Puerto Rico or wherever it does, Miss Plaskett.
Virgin
Jeffrey
Islands.
Epstein had more ties to Democrats than he ever did with Trump.
All right. Now,
Let's
Barry,
be
go
honest.
ahead.
Well, yeah, let's be honest. If Trump were completely scot-free and weren't one of the quote unquote bad actors involved, he would have asked for this to be released and could have, with the stroke of his pen, released it months ago. So, my concern is Mark Epstein is already saying that the files have been sabotaged and names have been removed. And names being removed, names being redacted. As you say, Giovanni, he's playing games with this. And let's not play games anymore. Let's just put it all out there.
So I will say that there were um, hundreds of FBI agents combing through those files at the time that they were in Pam Bondi's hands and prior to the time that she said there was nothing in there. So I don't know what was happening there, but I do want to make one statement. Pedi Anybody who was involved, I don't care if they're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, if they were involved in any way, shape, or form um, exploiting young women or anyone else, their name should be out there and they should be prosecuted. And I don't, that crosses party. I could care less what their political affiliation is.
Yeah, I think that's dead on. I think that's like I said, that's the core that everybody agrees on. If you did something bad to a minor, you should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But I did want to point out that it was Trump's first administration that did prosecute Epstein. And to Giovanni's point, the Biden DOJ had all this information, and if they would have had something implicating Trump, I promise you, I mean, they raided his house. I promise you, they would have prosecuted him.
He certainly,
Barriers.
all I can say is there is always an inference of guilt by people's actions, and he sure, maybe he's not, but he sure acts like he's really guilty.
Well, he did say he would sign the bill, and it was Hakeem Jeffries that objected to Speaker Johnson's unanimous consent motion, and
Johnny,
it was also him that invited him to an Obama fundraiser in 2013.
Giovanni, we want our viewers to know that while you're doing this program, you are in fact flying your personal airplane. So you're doing a great job. What do you want to say about Adam?
What was that?
No, I thought you had something to say. Do you know that on Wednesday night, Attorney General Pam Bondi said, quote, there's new information that could delay the release of the Epstein files. Mary, why are you smirking?
Well, did you see Mary or Barry?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mary.
Oh, because we knew that was going to happen. Pam Bondi there is no independence in the Department of Justice at all. It's gone. There is zero independence. She does whatever she is told. She is a sycophant to the highest degree. She's lucky she's holding on to her bar license, to be quite frank.
Why are we so quiet, Barry?
Why am I so quiet? Because I agree with everything everybody's saying to a certain degree, especially about it doesn't matter who's in there. Anybody's in there should be investigated. And if Pam Bondi is told to investigate the Democrats because mention of them in the files is investigation worthy, well, the 1,500 mentions of Trump in the 20,000 pages that have been released are investigation worthy too. And we can sit here and say, oh, this one should be investigated, that one should be investigated. Yeah, but I could have predicted that anybody supporting Trump would say, yeah, but the Democrats. Yeah, but Biden. We hear that all the time. Let's stop the yeah, but.
Also breaking this week, former Harvard University president and Treasury Secretary under President Clinton, I believe, Lawrence Summers. He announced that he's withdrawing from public duties to mend personal bonds in the wake of recent revelations in connection with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Some are saying, I am deeply ashamed of my actions and recognize the pain they have caused. So this is a big deal, don't you think so, Adam?
I think so, and I'm glad he resigned. And you know, when you say you're deeply ashamed, you probably don't mean you exchanged a few emails with a bad person. I wouldn't be deeply ashamed of accidentally communicating with somebody that I maybe didn't know did something nefarious. I tend to think it might be something more than that. I don't know. But I'm glad he resigned. And again, I hope he's punished to the fullest extent of the law. I do want to point out that he was an Obama administration official.
There we
Excellent
go.
point. All right. Mary, what, Mary?
I just want to say that, you know, this crap, I'm deeply ashamed. I'm going to mend fences. You know, give me a break. You're a criminal. If you were engaging with young women and exploiting them, it's all a big party. Everybody's laughing. It's all funny. You're all spending your money and going to private islands and flying on private jets and treating women like they are pieces of property and destroying their lives. You know what? To hell with, I need to mend my fences. That is just so weak and so inappropriate. It makes me want to vomit. It really does.
Please don't.
Just so gross. The whole
Yeah.
thing is just gross.
Yeah, mend fences in a prison cell, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Good point. Giovanni.
Look, I mean, I could agree with it, but you know, he's only sad because he got caught, right? I mean, when this stuff's coming out. But this is what this culture has become. I'm a man of faith, and this whole apologize. This is what the public has done. Like everything has to be approved in the court of public opinion. We're apologizing to the public, right? These people got to get right with God, the Creator. and fix it that way. And this culture has kind of created this view of apologizing to the public when that's not who you need forgiveness from. These actions occurred over a course of years or what have you, um, but I agree with Mary on this. I agree with Adam, that it is BS when you're saying I apologize or I want to mend fences. That ship has sailed. You need to look in the mirror. And from a law perspective, you should be held accountable. But these are spiritual issues. These are moral issues that we're facing. And we really got to turn back to the foundation.
As the only woman on the panel, I have to say the following, and I'm not saying that any of you are insensitive to the issue because you're males, but as the only woman on the panel, I just have to say that this idea of seeking public forgiveness, which is to make you feel better, you should be apologizing to those victims. These women have been traumatized initially and re-traumatized by people not believing them, acting as if they were liars, making up stories. Their lives again have been destroyed. They have been caught, there has been irreparable harm done. You want to make up to somebody, you want to apologize, you apologize to those victims who people have called liars for years and years and years. Don't just apologize because you think it's going to make you look better. It's a PR tour. That's some crap. You have ruined lives. The estimates are there were like 1,000 young women who
Yep.
were abused by these people, all for sport. They are disgusting and despicable human beings.
Does anyone disagree with that?
No.
No,
No.
I can't say I do.
Well, picture the young ladies that were standing on the Capitol steps with Jeffrey Epstein survivors, fellow lawmakers, Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying at that meeting on the steps of the Capitol, President Trump's resistance to releasing the Epstein files has, quote, ripped MAGA apart and has been destructive to the loyal base that Trump built. Quote, President Trump now calls Greene Marjorie Trader Greene. Adam, respond.
Sure. And again, I wish I knew all the details about why there was hesitation. I tend to think that it has to do with, actually prosecuting people, but this is not the first time that Marjorie Taylor Greene has broken away from the Republican Party as of recent. She definitely started adopting Democrat talking points when it came to the Schumer shutdown and saying that we should, for some reason, address healthcare when it had nothing to do with the clean CR that they always ask us to pass whenever there's a shutdown. So I think I don't know if it's something about her district or something about her reelection, but she's clearly taking a left turn.
Barry,
Well, it's interesting. Not only did Marjorie Taylor Greene stand up for herself, but she defined what a traitor was, and with all those women there, she said a traitor is someone who serves foreign governments and himself, and we know who she was referring to. And I think this is somewhat in response to the audio I heard of Trump talking about Taylor Greene dropping F-bombs and then saying, if I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me. So, yeah, there is a fissure in the MAGA movement, and it's sad to me that it's taken this for those people who I think at least believe in their convictions and believe in their morality to see that this man is not moral.
I am not a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene for lots and lots of reasons, but I honestly feel like what she is doing is really demonstrating what all of our elected politicians should do, which is you should be representing the people in your district. You should be behind the ideals that you told the public when you ran for office. You should maintain your personal integrity. That's not to say that you don't, as a party, have sort of a legislative agenda or things that you want to accomplish and you work together to do that. But at the end of the day, you are elected by the people in your district and you need to reflect the needs and values of those individuals. And that means being independent at times. And I think, and you shouldn't be subjected to the kind of vitriol that she was subjected to for simply doing what she thought was right for her constituents.
okay, we're going to take a short break. Excellent discussion. Great to have you, Adam. You
Thank
add a
you.
lot to the program, and it's good to see you too, Jovani and Barry, and of course, our hero, Mary Cook. Right now, let's hear from our great sponsors. Here he is, the voice of Square Off. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor because Howard, thank you for your service. Howard Mallison.
Thank you, Richard. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your choice for a great meal starts at the Double T Diner, and all the menu choices are served the entire day. The Double T Diner has locations all over town: Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Bel Air, Laurel, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. You've never seen a menu with so many selections. It's why
Yummy.
the Double T Diner wins so many reader polls. Plus, Monday nights are lobster night at By the Docks, part of the Double T family. Let them know you heard about them on Square Off. You know, if you or a family member has experienced personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect, it's time to call the law firm of Barry Glazer. He has the legal team and resources to go after big insurance companies to get every penny he can. With an in-house doctor, medical doctor, and nurse, his attorneys work on the toughest and most complex medical malpractice cases. Barry Glazer is your best advocate for the injured, disabled, and medically abused. So give Barry Glazer a call at 410 547 8568 and let him know you heard about him on Square Off. Back to you, Richard.
Okay. Please support our sponsors. They're great. Now, the National Transportation Safety Board. During the week, criticizing the Maryland Transportation Authority for failing to address the vulnerability of the Francis Scott Key Bridge to ship strikes, despite major changes in maritime traffic in since the Key Bridge opened in 1977. Two electrical blackouts, one caused by a loose wire, the other with a fuel pump, which disabled the cargo ship Dolly. Moments before it crashed into the Key Bridge last spring, 6 construction workers filling potholes on the bridge fell to their deaths when the bridge collapsed. There's other breaking news about the bridge, but let's respond to that. Who would like to talk about
I'm
that
I'm
terrible day?
I'm
Who?
sort of shocked by the idea that there wasn't a backup system, that a fuel pump and a loose wire could cause that kind of catastrophe. It seems to me like that ship was missing a lot of sort of safety backups. Um, I don't understand how something like that could happen. I mean, and let's face it, as relates to the infrastructure in Maryland and everywhere else, it's a mess. There are accidents waiting to happen across the country, tragedies waiting to happen because we have ignored our infrastructure for decades.
And
So,
if I could build off of that, Mary, actually, one thing I've wondered since the day it happened is if you look at these large bridges all across the country, they have they have barriers in front of the supports of all these bridges to make sure that this precise thing does not happen. And I don't know why nobody's been asking why we didn't have them.
well,
Well, that
I think there's part of it too. You know, just in maritime, usually you would come out with tugs in this type of situation,
Mhm.
and there should have been tugs, you know, as kind of a policy. But you know, this is all, you know, kind of hindsight is 2020. But in general, there's not many bridges that would be able to withstand that, regardless. But I do want to speak to a little bit about the ship itself. I mean, this kind of just goes to show that even though these things are massive, like the small little details matter, and this goes for life. And it's those little things that you could change that could really change the course of infrastructure of life. But you know, we really have to go back to again the basics. I stick to the basics. How do you check these things? Are these things checked off? And if not mistaken, the dolly had to come back to port twice. It was supposed to leave, but then there were some issues. But you know, again, maybe because we're trying to get things shipped out on time, or because you're going to lose money if it doesn't get there, you kind of ignore those things. But we really have to go back to the basics of these basic checks.
Tell you
and
what's
for the
really
federal
scary. What, Barry?
and for the federal government to blame the Maryland government, I think is a little misguided. If this were an airplane, it would be governed by federal law, and it would never have gotten off the ground. because of all the safety checks it would have to go through before you could ever take an airplane off. Just because this is a large boat doesn't mean it shouldn't go unregulated by any government, federal, state, or likewise.
Well,
Maritime
that
laws
body
and
of
federal
water,
laws.
that body of water is regulated by the state of Maryland, and Maryland does have policies when it comes to a ship, departing, particularly under a bridge. It should have tugs. There were no tugs that were
True.
the only thing that they had was the pilot, right? That was on the ship itself,
I
right?
agree.
But there was part of policy that was avoided in this case when there was no tugs involved, particularly for a ship going under a major piece of infrastructure, right? That's just a simple thing that we could have done, because if it had tugs, it would have not shifted to the left or the right. And when by the time that pilot has to get off the ship, which is below the key bridge, then if it experienced anything out there, we may not be talking about this right now.
All right, let me say
And I agree
something
with you.
about, wait, Bear. Let me say something about the cost of rebuilding that bridge. The cost of the rebuild has nearly tripled since it happened. It's gone from 1.7 to 1.9 billion, all the way to 4.3 to 5.2 billion dollars. And the completion date, which originally was 2028, has now been moved up or back to 2030. What do you think about that?
Well, this is kind of my area of law, so procurement, state government and federal government procurement, mostly state government. The build is called a progressive design build, in which the designer is allowed to build it, but if they can't come to an agreement on price, the state and federal government do have an off ramp where they can go put that back out to bid. So that the price here is what's being reported, but that is not necessarily, the state does have some options. But looking at other bridges that have been built, similar type of cable stay bridges, the most recent one that's opening in 2026, the Gordie Howe Bridge of similar, is 4.7 billion. So I don't know that this is that out of line. I do know, obviously, there's a sticker shock from multiplying 2 to 3 times. But there are things that may be done to lower the price, hopefully.
Governor Moore defends these new estimates.
Mhm.
He says the original figures were made just 2 weeks after the March 2024 disaster at the
Mhm.
Key Bridge.
So I want to say, just like that's Barry's field, what Jovani was talking about is what I make my living off of. People not doing their jobs. When they know that their jobs, their failure to do it can cause harm. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're dealing with a huge ship. You have people on the ship. You have the ship potentially interacting with bridges and other structures, and other ships if you're in port. I mean, I'm not a maritime lawyer by any stretch of the imagination. But this is what it's all about. It's about, spending a little bit of time and a little bit of money on the front end to avoid a catastrophe on the back end. And it seems like people want to rush for all the reasons you talked about. I need to get these goods to port. I need to get, this ship needs to get sailing. I don't want to waste that extra 10 minutes. When in essence, that extra 10 minutes or extra 20 minutes could have made all the difference in the world in that ship getting there safely and not knocking the bridge over. And Jovani, just when you said about how it's such a small thing, it honestly made me think of the Challenger explosion, because it was a little O-ring. I mean, it's those
Right.
little things that, make a huge difference in whether or not something operates safely. And you just have to pay attention to those things. And when you don't, these are the catastrophes that happen. And I don't think we're ever going to learn that lesson, because I've had my job for 36 years and I think I'm going to continue to have a job
All
because
right.
people just don't do it.
After Howard has a couple of words, we're going to talk about the gentleman who got some of the people are calling the IDGAF governor. Go ahead, Howard.
Hey, Richard. With so many cars on the road and distracted drivers everywhere, auto accidents are going to happen. And if you've experienced an accident, the insurance companies can't tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more drivers are trusting their auto repairs and maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models and offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give them a call at 410-443-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in Mount Washington, the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again.
They sure
And if,
do.
and if you're experiencing any kind of foot pain that requires medical attention, I recommend Dr. Kelly Gagan, a well-respected board-certified podiatrist and heel specialist. No one is immune from foot problems, and if your concern is the appearance of your feet, Dr. Gagan has a long record of success using laser treatments to correct your issue. Plus, they're safe, painless, and go right to the root of the problem. And you can believe me because I'm a cured patient, and so is Richard. So don't suffer from the agony of defeat. Start winning with a call to Dr. Gagan at 410-753-4422 to set up an appointment. Once again, that's 410-753-4422. Now back to you, Rich.
I guess you could say that Dr. Gagan, not Gagan, but that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I was going to make a funny crack, but I want to get to this before we run out of time. Governor Westmore, a frequent guest, as you've seen on the news networks, he was on Meet the Press recently and was asked about the Washington Post editorial criticizing his redistricting plan. Moore said he can respond in 5 letters: I, D, G, A, F. I don't give a. What do you think about this?
So I'll say this: when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Um, and who is he saying IDGAF to, right? Because generally, whether you agree with a newspaper outlet or not, the media is supposed to be a representative of the people, right? So if people are suggesting, the editorial board or whatever they may be, they're listening to people. And then when you listen to the, I think there was a hearing on this particular redistricting plan, and out of the 100 people that signed up to testify, 36 actually were able to testify. And over those 36 people that testified, 24 of them said no to redistricting. So this is the people talking about the plan. So who is he saying IDGAF to, right? That's the question.
Well, here it said the Washington, was it the Washington Post editorial? Yeah,
Well, my point is that
I got
the
your
media
point.
are
Yes.
supposed to be an extension of the people, right? That's supposed to be the transparency arm, and asking the tough questions of the elected officials, representing the people, and again, people testifying are saying no to redistricting.
Well,
So
I think who he's saying IDGAF to is the 40% of people that vote Republican in the state of Maryland. And this is just another example of he doesn't GAF about anything but running for president. And that might be part of why he seems completely unable to handle anything financially related. Like we just talked about the wild underestimate of the cost of rebuilding that bridge. And just the same as he drove up the spending in the state so much that he had to raise 400 taxes and fees at historic rates. And we're already in a 1.5 billion deficit after he did that. So he clearly does not GAF about anybody except for his voters and running for president.
Oh my God, who does that sound like? Who
I
does
know,
that sound
exactly.
like?
Giovanni, you say that, when someone shows you who they are, believe them, and the media is the voice of the people. Can you please tell that to our president who calls reporters piggy?
hey, I mean, at least he shows you who he is. I'm not saying Trump doesn't. He shows you
Okay.
exactly who he is.
And you support that,
Hey,
even though the
because
media is the voice of the people. I guess he's calling you and me and everybody here piggy.
Well,
let me say this.
it's a lot better
Go
than a
on, Jim.
president.
Let me say this.
Go ahead.
I'd rather see a wolf than a sheep a wolf trying to be a sheep.
I got to tell you, I mean, look, I hate the whataboutism, but I got to say, I don't appreciate it. I think that part of the problem is that a lot of politicians now, they've tried to do things other ways, and now they're taking a page out of the Trump playbook, and I don't necessarily agree with that. And I will voice my displeasure at the ballot box because that's what you do. But I will tell you that we have a person in office who has literally flat out said that he doesn't care about anybody who's in a Democratic city. He doesn't care about Democrats, period. He only cares about his voting base. So I just have to say that this is the blueprint for politics that unfortunately people are following. And I find it distressing across the board. You should care what all your constituents have to say. You mean, honestly, I understand why they're doing it, but I really feel like do it like California. If you want to do redistricting, not listening to 36 people testify in front of the legislature, put it on the ballot and let people answer the question about whether or not they want you to redistrict. That's
But
what
All right.
California
the
did.
ballot initiative or not,
important,
that's
though.
not how we're supposed to do gerrymandering. We're supposed to do it after the census every 10 years.
We're
And
not supposed to do gerrymandering at all. Well, we're supposed to have fair borders, and it's been a misuse of politics since elections have started. It's one of the big problems we have in this two-party primary election system that's leading us to where we are. I think we need to rethink all of it.
The
We
Well,
need
let's
to
person,
rethink
rethink
the
it for
parties. We
next
need to
week.
rethink the primaries. We
person,
need to rethink the borders.
All right, Mary, wrap it.
okay, the person who has talked about gerrymandering is Trump. Trump told Texas to do it. Texas did it. He said he's going to primary people in Indiana because Indiana wouldn't do it. And now the Justice Department is going after California, who did it by putting it on the ballot. This is your head spins. My head spins listening to all this garbage. I mean, don't tell me, I don't agree with gerrymandering at all. I think there should be fair lines drawn. I think the lines that are drawn in Maryland are ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it in my life. You couldn't try any harder to gerrymander districts in Maryland. I agree that it's wrong, but let's just start where it started. Somebody flat out telling their party gerrymander so we can win the House, and I won't be a lame duck in 2 years.
All right.
It's
We are out of time. On behalf of the Square Off team and all of our panelists and everyone associated with this show that's been around for almost 42 years now. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We hope you enjoy your gobble gobble day and join us again. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, dear Jovani.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And Adam, welcome to the show. Very good performance. And I've just got word that you're going to become a regular, occasional panelist. How are you? What more do you have to be thankful for?
I would just say, Adam, demand more pay than the rest of us.
All right, folks, happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you next time. I'm Richard Sher. And once again, we square off. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.